done people pleasing, and done living life on autopilot. I'm your host, Letitia, the survival mood disruptor, and this is where we create disruptive, unapologetic transformations for those who are ready to exit survival mode and reclaim their power. Every episode is your permission slip to burn the rule book, break the cycle, and finally build a life that feels like yours. So let's disrupt everything that's holding you back and start living life on your own terms. This is your trigger warning. This podcast is raw. It is real and it doesn't sugarcoat what it means to survive trauma, abuse, mental health battles, or even the aftermath of living in survival mode for too damn long. What you hear on Survival Mode Disrupted includes unfiltered stories, graphic details, and a vulnerable truth that may trigger some of the audience. Please prioritize your emotional safety. If something feels too heavy, pause, breathe, come back when you're ready, or not at all. Your healing is yours to honor. These episodes are based on lived experience, not therapy sessions or clinical advice. Listening does not replace mental health treatment or constitute a coach client relationship. If you're in crisis, please seek immediate help from a licensed professional or contact your local emergency services. This space is built with care, but it's also built for truth and built for disruption. Take what you need, leave the rest, and most of all, trust yourself. If this podcast speaks to your soul, you don't have to do this work alone. Feel free to join our free Facebook community for high achieving women ready to break cycles and heal out loud. Join us at Disrupting Survival Mode on Facebook, or grab the book that started this movement, Exiting Survival Mode, a raw step by step guide to help you identify, release, and rebuild from the survival patterns that have been keeping you stuck. Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of Survival Mode Disrupted. This is your host, Letitia, the Survival Mode Disruptor, and today I have Vitelle with me. Vitelle, why don't you introduce yourself?
So, hey everybody, my name's Vitelle. I'm an actress, model, and entertainer. Most people know me as the founder of Us Three Productions. I'm also a published author. I do a little bit of everything. I'm a mama, I'm an auntie, all of the things. But most importantly, I use my own gifts and talents and my own experiences, and I've combined them in order to help people heal through the arts. So, what I do is that I use my testimony, share it through arts and entertainment, and it's helping other people to heal all around the world. So that's just a little bit about me and what I do.
Oh, I love that, and welcome to the show. So let's
Thank you.
start with, how would you describe survival mode?
Survivor mode to me is that's something I'm all too familiar with. As a mother and most of my life being a single mother, I have been in survival mode a lot for a long time. In fact, sometimes it's hard to this day to stay out of survival mode because I feel like you can kind of go in and out of it sometimes. Even once you've gone through your healing process and everything, you can find yourself still stuck in that place sometimes. And so I feel like survival mode is really a mindset. It is a place where in our minds, we're just trying to live and survive out here, but we're taking everything that life hands us, everything that, whether it's trauma or whatever experiences that we're uncomfortable with, that everything that life throws at us, and we're doing our best to survive in the midst of that with whatever we're given. So I feel like survival mode can be a good thing when you are when you're a survivor, you want to be a survivor, but at the same time, that mindset of constantly being in survival mode because we don't want to keep just surviving, we want to start thriving, right? So there's a difference between that survival mode and thriving for me, and that's what makes it a place that you want to try to get out of.
I agree with you 100%. I think the aim isn't to just survive, it's to
Mhm.
thrive afterwards.
Exactly.
So tell us your story to and through survival mode.
Yes. So I have again just been I'm so familiar with survival mode because I have been homeless, because I have been through so many traumatic experiences in my life. I talk about those in my book and in my shows. And from childhood, from abuse growing up, and then ending up in relationships where I was going through abuse and things like that, I was always finding myself in survival mode in a negative way because it's like, this is what I'm dealing with right now, and I have to work my way through it. And so, especially being homeless with my kids living in our vehicle, that was something that, that's when the basic instincts of survival really kick in when you're like, I need food, water, and shelter. That's it. Like nothing else is important. We just got to have these things to survive. And, you're not even thinking about prospering or thriving or moving forward. You're just trying to get through this moment in time and this experience that you're going through. So I've been there way too many times to count. And again, just even now, like when I find myself going back to that place, it's because I'm experiencing something at this moment in time that I'm not comfortable right now. I'm not where I want to be. I'm trying to get through this period of time that I don't like in order to get to that period of time that I see. So, working my way through that timeline of life. And so um, these are all moments in which I can remember being in a survival mode and it not being a comfortable space.
So through the ebbs and flows of life and being in survival mode multiple times, what have you done to heal from the things that you've been through, um, so that your time in survival mode is a lot less when you do
Right.
find yourself in it?
Right. Yeah, I feel like life is so interesting. Like, with age comes wisdom sometimes and just experience and going through it. And I'm a believer. I trust God through every step of the way, even when it seems like, what are you doing, God? What is going on here? It's really hard to trust sometimes. But as I'm going through things, my faith is what's really kept my sanity through all of this. And I've discovered different methods over time to cope, to heal. Like that's the most important thing. It's not just about coping, because in coping it's like I it's almost like you're trying to accept where you are. Like, okay, I'm depressed right now because of this that's going on, so I'm just going to cope with this depression. There's, in a sense, you have to do that a little bit to accept where you are at this moment, but not just accept it and stay there, and still have your mindset on, I'm going to get through this moment. I'm going to work my way out of this. So I do recommend therapy, but I don't feel like we were talking before the show, like that's the end all be all, because a lot of times when I've gone through therapy, I felt like they don't really understand me and they're just getting paid to listen to me. So it was great to be able to vent and get that off my chest. They're really good listeners and everything, but at the end of the day, I was still faced with the reality that this person just read all about this in a textbook. They haven't experienced this. They don't know firsthand. So I'm a huge believer in life coaches. That's something that we're really big on right now, to because life coaches, they've been through this life. Like they're not just going off the books. And in some cases, they have studied and read the books, but they're going off of their personal experience and what they know. And so, even I don't really consider myself a life coach because that's just not a title that I've wanted to take on. But I have found myself life coaching because I am a speaker, because I'm an author, because I'm determined to help people heal from their traumas through in sharing my trauma. So I just naturally end up in that position. But in that, the best thing I can do is share my own testimony and let people know that I have been there, I've done that, I've gone through it. And there's so many ways that you can find along your journey to cope, heal, and survive beyond just survivor mode. Whether that is, sometimes for me that was coloring, it really just depended on what the situation was that I was dealing with. Sometimes it was coloring or reading or praying or going to church or staying away from church in some cases. Sometimes it was looking up YouTube videos for motivation, and whatever it is that you can find, hitting the gym, going to play basketball. Sometimes it's just about getting physically active or changing your physical environment. So the answer to that question is really endless. And it really depends on, what the situation is that you're dealing with, but just understanding that whatever it is, other people have survived it, other people have gone through it, understanding that you're not alone. And then, figuring out ways that work for you to work your way through it. That's the important part there.
I agree with you 100%. And, we talked about the element of around therapy before the call. I think for the listeners who may not necessarily understand the difference between therapy and coaching,
Mhm.
um, therapy is really a lot about exploring what happened
Mhm.
so that
Mhm.
you have clarity in why you are the way you are today. Whereas
Mhm.
coaching does not necessarily focus on the past, it focuses on
Right.
the future. While we may touch on elements of the past,
Mhm.
coaching is very action driven. It's about
Yeah.
anchoring into your goals and the things that you want beyond your current circumstances and someone supporting you in that, but not only just listening to you, calling you out for the things that might actually be hindering you with moving forward. So,
Yes.
have you yourself worked with a coach or
I don't. That's a funny question because you would think that'd be easy to answer, but I don't have a specific coach that I have said, this is my life coach, this is who I work with, and I stick with them. I'm more of a, um, as I'm out here meeting people and coaching people myself, I'm being coached and interacting with other life coaches, and they inspire me. So when I say, when I consider someone my mentor, it's not like I signed at the dotted line and said, "Oh, you're my mentor from now on." It's someone who is just naturally been placed in my life, and they've inspired me and encouraged me, and that's what they do, not even trying to. So technically I haven't signed up with the life coach, but I have life coaches around me all the time that coach me unknowingly, just because it's naturally what they do.
Mhm. I know for myself, once I committed to my healing, I
Mhm.
found people around me that they could have been there all that time and I just didn't know. But I
Yeah.
think I I think the world opens up to us when we make that commitment and
Mhm.
and then whether you believe in the universe, whether you believe in God, whatever that higher power is, places people in your path to
Right, right,
teach
exactly.
you lessons or to re-emphasize the lessons that have already been learned so
Yeah,
that you are in a position to move forward wholly,
yeah.
not piecemeal, as often happens when we try to do it on our own. And the other thing that I think is really important is creating a community around us.
Yeah,
I think a lot of times when we are in survival mode, when we've experienced trauma, we spend a lot of time alone
yeah, yeah, isolating,
ruminating,
absolutely.
yes, isolating and ruminating on
Mhm.
all of the things that have gone wrong. And I
Mhm.
think a huge part of the healing process is being able to lean into others, being able
Yeah,
to accept help from others so that we
yeah,
can move ourselves forward. What would
yeah.
you say also aids healing?
You know what? I was going to piggyback right off what you said, because not only that, but I think we're living in a time and place where people are getting less interactive with other humans because technology is just so advanced. So it's like you can literally be best friends with ChatGPT now and don't need another human in your life. And but it's like, you don't want to be in, you don't want, that's an unhealthy place to be. But unfortunately, that's where so many people are extreme introverts, are socially awkward, and all of these things. That's where we get all of that. I feel like ever since the pandemic, when we were forcefully separated from all of society, and now it's like we've just embraced that as part of, probably part of our survival mode reaction. But at the same time, we can use this technology like ChatGPT and AI and all of these things to get us to a place where we realize how healthy it is to be around people and to have that community. Because, what I mean is that, let's say I am someone who's in isolation right now because I'm dealing with depression or whatever I'm dealing with. I don't feel like anyone else is going to understand, and I'm going through this alone and nobody gets it. that's understandable. But even where I'm at right now, figuring out a way to reach out, it doesn't necessarily have to be with a person. I can literally ask ChatGPT, hey, I'm depressed right now. What do you think I should do about it? And be as specific as possible with your situation. And it will recommend these things to you, including getting around other people in most cases. So I think, that's a start, and that should be a segue to getting around people more, not a reason to stay even more isolated because now I got chat over here and I don't need nobody else. So, but I do recommend that technology, and we have so many things at our disposal. Even social media, making the connection to there, like that can be a good thing if used the proper way, but it also can be a negative thing if you're on there all the time, constantly comparing yourself to other people and looking at who's looking at who and all this. Like, it can be a bad thing. So you just have to be really aware of how you're using it. I tell my kids all the time, anything in your hands can either be a tool or a weapon. Which one are you going to choose? Like, it's depending on how that person uses it. So I definitely would recommend, technology in a lot of instances to get out of that stuck place and just try to connect with the world.
I always say I wish I had the technology that is available now when I was
Right.
going through my worst,
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
it
Me
would have
too.
looked a lot different. As you were
Yeah.
telling your story, you mentioned faith.
Mhm.
I w Can we explore how you anchored into faith in order to heal?
Absolutely. So I think for a lot of people, there can be a misconception that that means going to church more and all of these things, and that is not what I mean at all. I feel like the church is in us. We are the church. We are the people. God lives in us and through us, and so being able to tap into that, because I think so many people nowadays have experienced church hurt that they want to stay as far away from the church as possible, and in most cases, that means for them disconnecting from God completely. So I just think it's so important that we stay in that personal relationship with God. Like you said, the creator, universe, whatever you choose to call this entity that created us, it's like to have that personal one-on-one relationship with this being is so important, because the fact of the matter is, regardless of our beliefs, we are all spiritual beings having a human experience up in here. We're all stuck on this planet together in these fleshly bodies. That's the one thing we have in common. Even though we all look completely different, we're all in this flesh. So, just staying connected and grounded. For me, that means reading my word more, which I'll be honest, I don't take enough time to do that. I wish that I did more often. But when I expose myself to it, whether that's through YouTube videos, watching the pastor online, or whatever ways, like we mentioned, the technology, that I'm able to connect and just feed myself this book that was created from so many centuries ago to come to this point in time to meet me here where I'm at and give me so much encouragement and inspiration, and just everything that I need in that moment. It can be found in that book right there. So, I love going on to YouTube and just listening to people like Priscilla Shire. She's one of my favorite people right now on the planet. Like, I love her to death. Just listening to people who are pumped about God's word. It reminds me that I actually know more than I think I do, because if somebody starts to say the scripture, I'll be able to piggyback off of it, and that just comes from years of growing up in the church. But I'm like, okay, I'm not as disconnected from my Bible as I thought I was. But I would definitely love to improve the time that I spend reading and just meditating and slowing down, because I do get so busy out here. And I heard somebody mention it earlier, actually on a YouTube. What was it, like a motivational Monday kind of thing? Trying to think of the word. Gosh, it's slipping my mind. But anyway, they were talking about just this, is like how sometimes when we answer the call of God, we get so busy in that calling that we don't actually spend that one-on-one time with God as much as we used to. So that's where I found myself a lot recently, is like I've been so busy trying to accomplish the things that I feel I'm put on this earth to do, and I don't take the time that I need to slow down. So that just comes, right in with the self-awareness that I feel like we all need to have. That self-awareness. That's the best recommendation I can give to heal from anything. That covers everything. It's just being aware of where you are, how you're feeling, why you're feeling, all of those things, and being so aware of that that you're able to make a change in the positive direction based on what you're observing.
It's interesting that you mentioned self-awareness because
Mhm,
as I've been on this podcast and as I talk in other spaces, as a
mhm,
trauma recovery mentor, I say that there are three phases to
mhm,
accident survival mode. First is self-awareness, second is
mhm.
reprogramming, and the third is reinvention. And like
Yeah,
you said, without that self-awareness, it's we can't change what we can't see. So we are
exactly.
living in oblivion. I mean, it's not a far fetch why we often find ourselves in survival mode because if we're not taking radical ownership of the things that we become aware of and actively attempt to change that,
Mhm.
nothing changes in our world.
Right.
Now, I want to go back to the faith issue, and I just want to share a piece with you. And you mentioned about being homeless. I myself was homeless for 2 years. And in that process, I decided it wasn't because I didn't have money. It wasn't because of any other circumstances other than the area that I was living in didn't have homes available after my landlord took his property back. And
Wow.
while my family and I traveled full time and we traveled through Europe, I was essentially a shell of myself because the only thing that I could think about was how do I keep this going so that we
Mhm.
don't end up
Right.
um, without a roof over our head. But one
Mhm.
thing that I learned along that process, I always tell people that the journey literally brought me back to me. And
Yeah.
one of the main reasons for that is because I learned to surrender. I think
Mhm.
prior to becoming homeless, I had this notion that I was in complete control, and I
Yeah.
wasn't, right?
Mhm.
And then it the experience allowed me to revisit my relationship with God because
Yeah.
I had to trust and surrender because
Yeah. Yeah.
I had no control. And I
Yeah.
think
Exactly.
I think oftentimes we really struggle with the reality that we may not be in control. But what is important is to anchor into the things that we do have control of and
Mhm.
focus on that rather than focusing on the things that we know that we can't control at all. What are your
Exactly.
thoughts?
Oh, I agree with that 100%. And yes, there's nothing that can bring you closer to God than being hitting rock bottom. As I've heard before, you when you get to the bottom, the only way to go is up. You know, you're down there, you can only look up. There's nowhere else to look there. So yeah, no, I totally agree with that, and I can relate to that experience for sure.
Hmm. Yeah. It's actually, I will say this. I had started a business and at the time, I was still working in commercial insurance. I worked in commercial insurance for like 13 years. And I wanted to leave my role because it was so sucking and draining.
Mhm.
But the only thing that kept me there was the fear that I would become homeless because I
Wow.
didn't have this consistent income. What
Yeah.
I recognize, my biggest fear
Mhm.
gave birth to my biggest opportunity.
Yes.
And oftentimes, we run away from things because of fear. We
Mhm.
avoid things because of the unknown and uncertainty. But oftentimes those are the places where we get our biggest blessings. Those are the places where we get to know ourselves, a new version of ourselves that awakens this confidence, that awakens this self-trust, um, which I think is the beauty of life's journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And I say that all the time. Like, a question that a lot of people will ask is if you could get in a time machine and go back and change anything, or if there was anything that you could have prevented from happening, like what would you? And I really think through that, like, every time I think of a place and time where I think I would change it, then I'm like, but wait a minute, then I wouldn't have gotten this, then I wouldn't have experienced that, then I wouldn't have, so it's like everything that we've ever gone through, at the end of the day, I can look back and say, wow, I'm so grateful for these horrible events that have happened in my life. Like, that sounds crazy to someone else, but when you've been there, you understand, like you understand. So, those darkest places have brought the most light out in me, and brought the best, the as far as adding to my own personality, and just who I created, who I am, like you said.
Mhm.
So yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
And I will say that I always heard that from people who have
Mhm.
anchored into their own healing, right? Like
Mhm.
until you anchor into your own healing, you tend to sit on victim lane, and
Yes.
that that in itself is a problem. But once you are able to get past that, and you start thriving, and you recognize, like, without this, I wouldn't be
Yeah,
who I am today. And there is this
exactly.
level of gratitude,
Mhm.
even though that time was hard, even though that time was rough. What we are grateful for was the edification that came as a result of those circumstances, how
Yeah.
it changed us and brought us closer to our purpose,
Mhm.
how it allowed us to flourish in ways that probably would not have happened had those events not happened. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that level of gratitude is a testament to the
Yes.
work that has been done, for
Yeah.
anybody.
And it really changes everything from that point on. Like I say all the time, nothing can happen to me anymore. Like literally nothing can happen to me, because even though I'm still alive and I'm going to experience uncomfortable times and things that I'd rather not happen at that moment, I see it as an opportunity for growth, rather than, oh my gosh, why is this happening to me? This is horrible. Like it's never like that anymore. Now I understand how this works, and I see an opportunity. For example, I totaled my car out back in March, and on my birthday, and it was devastating. Anybody in that situation would have been devastating. But at the same time, I couldn't even do anything but be happy. I had my moments where I was crying, but I was so in the midst of it. I'm like, okay, what good is going to come of this? Like, I'm about to get my brand new car. I have been asking God for a car. So, sometimes it don't look like how we think it's going to look. Sometimes it looks like a bad situation, but it could be God blessing us. And so I'm always looking into the situation like, okay, what am I supposed to get out of this? What am I supposed to learn? How is this going to benefit me, rather than why is this happening to me? Like it just
Hmm.
completely changes your perspective from now on.
Hmm. And especially when you can make that reframe, and shift the way that you look at things, because everything does
Mhm.
serve a purpose. We may not
Yeah.
see it, but of course, hindsight is what they say, hindsight is 2020.
2020. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's clear as day. And then the other
Yeah.
thing that we have to be conscious of, everything that we ask for, we
Mhm.
have to be prepared for,
Yeah,
right? And
exactly. Okay, be
we
careful
don't,
what you ask for. That they were not
yes,
lying when they said that.
and we're not prepared by easygoing lives, right? So like you got these big aspirations for life. You want to be strong. You want to be this. You want to be that. Let me tell you, you're gonna be taught to be strong.
Right.
It's not something that's gonna happen overnight. You're gonna have to go
Mhm.
through some struggles to get there,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everything brings you to the next thing.
Mhm.
Everything has purpose. And when you can spend time looking back and pieces those pieces together, that's where
Mhm.
the gratitude comes from. Like, gosh, I wanted to be this pillar of strength for others.
Mhm.
And that journey meant I had to be
Yeah.
homeless for 2 years. I had to
Right.
lose my business. I had to lose my marriage. But
Mhm.
I'm here, and I learned so many lessons along the way that now
Mhm.
I can pass on to others. Now I can sit in my purpose and be impactful and help others change as a result of what I went through.
Absolutely. When as you're saying that, I'm sitting over here thinking my life is a whole result of me as a little child asking to be a superhero. Why did I do that? Here I am now, just superhero and all over the place because of my whole life experiences since then. Like, gotta be careful what you ask for.
Absolutely. So I've really enjoyed this conversation. Tell us a bit more about your books. I want you to talk to us about the tour that you just ended, because I think it will be great to learn a little bit more about that.
Yes, I'm so excited about the tour still because even though so it kicked off in January 2025 and it just ended here in July. And when I tell you there's so much to be told that I literally started writing a book about it. Like that was not my plan or intention. I was thinking, as soon as this tour is over, I'm going to be able to sit still for a minute and finish my next two books, which I had already lined up ready to go. They're almost one of them's almost completely finished. And then I kind of just took a detour, and God's telling me write a book about this whole tour experience. And I'm just like, okay, so the next time someone asks me, how did the tour go? I'm going to literally hand them a book because it was full of so many miracles. The show itself is a one woman show. It's called Nine Lives. And prior to doing a tour with it in 2025, I was just doing it up on request. So I'd done it at like retreats and different places here and there, sometimes bigger audiences, sometimes just, 10-woman retreat or something like that. And so with this one woman show, I was able to travel with it and take requests ever since the pandemic. I started doing it back in 2020. And it's depicting like all of the traumas that I've gone through using these nine different characters. Each of them are telling their story, but they're all my story. So one's been homeless, one's been through abuse, one's been, all of these things that I've been through. And so it's really been life changing for so many people all over to experience this. Everybody can find themselves in it in some way. And in 2025, I was like, we're going to take it on a 9 city tour. And it was really a huge faith walk like I've never experienced before. I had no idea how I was going to do it, where the funds going to come from, where we're going to stay at. Like there was just so many things to have to think about. And when I tell you, God just did that thing from the beginning to end, I've never seen like, it's really hard to say that because God has showed up so many times in my life in the midst of the craziest situations, but to see him really perform miracles literally for other people right before my eyes, there's just so much that's going to be discussed in this book that y'all just gotta get it and read it. But I'm definitely planning on having the book out within a month from the end of the show day. So perhaps by the time you guys are watching this, the book will already have been released, but definitely make sure you get a copy if you don't have one already because it's coming. I'm so excited about it.
I am so excited to hear that. And yes, I will definitely follow up with you before we go live to make sure that we can um, provide that information to the guests. So, how can
Okay.
we connect with you? I mean, the audience.
Yes.
So, how can we connect with you online?
Yeah, absolutely. I make it very easy. All you do is go to Vitelle.net. That's Vitelle.net. Vitelle.net connects to all my social media. Links are going to be on there. You can subscribe via email on my website. And you can also text me to subscribe if you'd like to receive direct text messages for everything that's happening and going on in my world. You can text 770-626-5075. And
All
that's
of
it.
that information will be in the show notes. But before we wrap it all up, can you give us one key takeaway for the audience to action?
So I'll say that one more time. I'm sorry, I kind of.
One key takeaway for the audience to action.
Hmm. This is the part where I have to like be really quiet for a second and just say the right thing because I truly believe that everything happens for a reason. And even though I'm speaking to someone watching this possibly a couple months from now, right? I need to tap into what they need in this moment. And only God knows that because only God knows the future. So I just feel the need to say, rest assured. Um, Whatever your belief system is, just rest assured and be comfortable and at peace in the place of knowing that everything happens for a reason, that it's all destined and ordained, and even the things that seem horrible in those dark moments that you're experiencing in that moment in time can turn around as a blessing for you if you just allow it to. But if you stay in this dark place and you're like, I hate my life. This is the worst thing that could happen. Whatever negative thing you can see in that moment, if you stay there, then that's where you'll be. You have to choose to see the best in it. You have to choose to let the light in. You have to choose to come up out of that place and to be mindful of the fact that you're in that place for a reason. So again, nothing happens to me. And you can get to that place too, to understand that nothing ever happens to you. Everything happens for me at this point in life. And I want everybody to get to that space where they are at peace and understand that everything happens for them. So I encourage everybody to tap into that and believe it.
Yes, I agree 100%. Everything happens for you in life, and it's it's up to you to reframe your negative thoughts into something positive. So thank you so much for joining me in this episode of Survival Made Disrupted. And audience, I want to remind you, you were not built to break, but you damn sure were not built to just survive. Disrupt the cycle, reclaim your life, and thrive on your own terms. And I will see you next week. Once again, thank you for joining another episode of Survival Mode Disrupted, hosted by the Survival Mode Disruptor, Letitia. You didn't land here by accident. This conversation, it probably cracked something open on purpose, because survival mode isn't just a phase, it's a pattern, an identity, a prison masked as strength. But here's the truth: you're not broken, you're just unfinished. So if something stirred in you today, don't ignore it, don't numb it, move with it. And I want to once again invite you to join Disrupting Survival Mode, the Facebook community where healing is loud and messy and real. I also want to invite you to buy my book, The Survival Mode Exit Plan, because your breakthrough deserves a blueprint. And if you felt seen today, be sure to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Like, subscribe, and drop a review. That's how we amplify the voices that need to be heard. And remember, this isn't about fixing yourself. This is about finding yourself again beneath the rubble. Until next time, choose ease, choose power, choose you. This is Survival Mode Disrupted. Let's keep shaking